Who is the most overrated person in history? My sister. I do stuff too, Mom. Tutankhamun, or King Tut as he is sometimes referred. He was a boy pharaoh that only reached the age of maybe 18. Born from incest and suffered scoliosis, a bad foot, walked with a cane, and contracted malaria, and likely died from an infection from a broken leg. Also, when he came to power, married his sister and had 2 miscarriages. This poor boy had lots of power, but was sick all his life, and likely his advisors made all decisions for him and eventually succeeded. Haile also had a very short reign that ended with Egypt at war. They would lose under his successor. Sadly, the royal family in Egypt at that time frequently married their half-siblings. The last doc I saw on Tut theorized that he broke his foot in a chariot race. He's not remembered because he was a great ruler, but because his pristine tomb was found. Tomb raiders have destroyed and stolen the contents of so many tombs that finding his tomb taught historians a great deal. So Tut wasn't the big deal. Finding his intact tomb was. The reason we care so much about him is because of his incredibly well-preserved tomb. Guy Fawkes. He was a minor cog in a conspiracy that he didn't even know all that much about. He was tasked with a dead simple objective, and he failed. He gave up the names of all the co-conspirators that he knew about, but most of them operated on a much higher level than this chump. So they got off Mosul scot-free. He had 1 job and he fucked up 3. Basically, he doesn't deserve the pages that his story is written on in history books. I 100% thought this said Guy Fieri, and then I read the rest and thought I missed some huge news. Jack the Ripper. More overhyped, not overrated. But he only killed 5 people. It's not like he's the original Dexter. Yeah, I really hate this story. Overtold. Over-theorized. Only reason no one has pinpointed him was because it was in 1888, before crime investigation matured, and they didn't have the technology. Beyoncé. Her host, the wife of the owner of the Warriors, leans over her to ask Jay what he wants to drink. People see it, harass the woman to no end, and make it into a power moment for Beyoncé. Don't get me wrong, she's a great artist, but people act like she's a god. Edit. To everyone saying it's not her, it's her fan base. Would you kindly look up the definition of overrated? Her fans turned me off so much. I would like Beyoncé if it wasn't for her fans. She's talented, just not as much as her fans make her out to be. You say one semi-negative thing about her and the Beehive loses their minds. Coco Chanel. I have recently found out she was apparently a Nazi agent who went under the code name Westminster. She spent most of WW2 in Paris in the Ritz, sleeping with Nazi officers, and had direct contact to Himmler and Goebbels. She even insisted all Jewish directors of her brand be removed. Edit. I can't spell. Ted Bundy. People claim that in terms of serial killers he had high intelligence. He didn't. He dropped out of law school because he couldn't keep up with his peers. So he was of average intelligence. He's just being compared with other serial killers who overall skew lower in terms of IQ. And no, his crimes weren't clever. He broke into the basement of a sorority house and bludgeoned 2 girls to death with a log from the fireplace while they were sleeping. The only reason he wasn't caught sooner was because the detectives working on the case were idiots and ignored multiple credible reports from Bundy's ex-wife. Stop romanticizing the guy. Outside of how nasty it is to hype up freaking serial killers, he, like all serial killers, was a gigantic turd sandwich. He wasn't smart, and his crimes weren't elegant or super planned out 4D chess murders. Don't believe the stupid dumb Netflix movie. Oh, and he admitted that after he tossed the bodies into a field because they were too badly decomposed to keep them in his house, he'd still go out there and sleep with them despite the fact that they were rotting and likely full of maggots and etc. Dude was sick. People need to stop romanticizing crime. Edit. For people picking apart the law school comment, what I said came directly from Ted Bundy's mouth in terms of the reason he dropped out. In August 1974, Bundy received a second acceptance from the University of Utah Law School and moved to Salt Lake City, leaving Klopfer in Seattle. While he called Klopfer often, he dated at least a dozen other women. 110. When he studied the first-year law curriculum a second time, he was devastated to find out that the other students had some intellectual capacity that he did not. He found the classes completely incomprehensible. It was a great disappointment to me, he said. This came from Polly Nelson's book, and she was one of his lawyers. So if you have issues with my comment about him not keeping up with his peers, that comes straight from Ted himself. Double edit. To whomever gave me silver, thank you. Usually I respond to the gilding message with a thank you, but I got up to clean my fish tank and came back to like 60 comments. So I got a little overwhelmed. The Unaboomer, that's your go-to insanely smart crazy person. Christopher Columbus edit. I'd like to thank the Academy for silver. 10 out of 10 would discover India again. Discover India again. Mother Teresa, Mia Khalifa. Her thinking she's a big person in sports now is ridiculous. No one follows her for her sports opinion lol. Waldo. Why should anyone even care to search for him? He's done nothing. The fact that he's always hiding is probably because he's done something wrong. Plus that fucker only has one shirt. This whole thread can be summarized as surprise ending. Nobody is perfect. Nobody's perfect. Except for Bob Ross, Fred Rogers, Steve Irwin, and Keanu. Mother Teresa believed the suffering of the poor was beautiful. She also let the sick people she helped go without medicine to bring them closer to God. Different story when she became sick though. Ioannis Metaxas. He was the leader of Greece from 1936 to 1941. Most famous for not surrendering to fascist Italy during WW2. The only problem is that Metaxas was a fascist dictator himself. Yes, but he was our fascist dictator. I'm gonna have to go with Hitler. His paintings really weren't that great. Hitler could have become a great flower painter, but he chose the easy path. Ken M. Not the most overrated, but first guy that comes to mind is America's only Paul Revere. Don't get me wrong. Yes, he was a good guy and he played a role in our nation's fate that night. But did you know he wasn't the only man on the midnight ride? A lot of the work and credit goes to his two peers that night. Revere only gets the credit because his name rhymed nicely in the poem written about High Monsieur. I only know this because my grandma pointed out that we're related to one of the other two men. William Dawes. I'm too lazy to look up the other guy's name or how much of a role each of the three played in the event, but my basic memory tells me Revere wasn't the most critical player of the three. In fact, and I could be wrong, he got caught before he finished his role, which led the real heroism to one of the other two. So yeah, thanks Paul Revere, but let's give credit to the other guys who warned us of the British that night. We can't all have nice-sounding names, though, so your name is remembered while the other two have been forgotten by most, other than historians and nerds. ETA. I didn't expect this to be seen or for it to get all this attention. Not replying to everyone, but there's some good history facts in here and I'm learning some things about him and others. U.S. history, especially with regards to war, isn't my top interest. I'm liking the conversation and seeing some healthy debate. Sorry if I sounded undereducated on this topic as I don't know it in great detail. This is Reddit. This is my opinion. And that was mostly detail from what I learned in K-12 school, but I'm done with my bachelor's now. And K-12 was a long time ago. Also, this may be my top comment ever, so thank you everyone for the karma. But mostly the interesting facts and conversation here. I just had 100 plus notifications in my inbox yesterday and thought I marked them all as read, so I was really confused seeing all of this. 2 comments in 2 days hitting 6K plus karma. I just had a crummy night at the laundromat, so thank you for making that a little bit better. Samuel Prescott Israel Bissell Sybil Ludington. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.